Turkey sits where Europe ends and Asia begins. Not symbolically, operationally, it controls access to the Black Sea. It borders the Middle East. It touches the Caucasus. It stands between energy producers and energy consumers. Every tanker entering the Black Sea, every grain shipment leaving Ukraine, every naval vessel moving between Russia and the Mediterranean, they all pass through Turkish-controlled straits. Empires rose and fell over this geography. Armies crossed it. Caravans moved silk and spices through it. Modern pipelines now follow the same ancient logic. Turkey was born strategic, and today, Ankara is doing something rare. It is not choosing sides, it is exploiting tension. While formally aligned with the Western security system, Turkey simultaneously cooperates with Russia, expands influence across the Middle East, and quietly builds partnerships across Africa. This is not confusion, it is design. Turkey is no longer trying to become Western. It is positioning itself as an indispensable swing power between blocs. Not strong enough to dominate, too important to ignore. Two narrow waterways define most of Turkey's leverage, the Bosporus and the Dardanelles. Together, they form the only maritime gateway between the Mediterranean and the Black Sea. To the north lies Eastern Europe and southern Russia. To the south, the Levant and Red Sea trade routes. To the east, the Caucasus and Central Asia. To the west, Europe's industrial core. Few countries sit at the intersection of so many strategic systems. Turkey borders conflict zones. It neighbors fragile states. It touches migration corridors. It anchors logistics chains linking Asia to Europe. This is not abstract geography. It is leverage geography. Turkey does not need aircraft carriers to project power. The world already passes through it, and in a century defined by choke points, shipping lanes, fiber cables, pipelines, and supply chains, placement matters more than raw strength. During the Cold War, Turkey served as the southeastern wall of the Western Alliance, a frontline state against Soviet expansion. But when that conflict ended, something shifted. The existential threat disappeared. The alliance expanded eastward, and Ankara began to rethink its role. Today, Turkey treats membership not as identity, but as instrument. It blocks expansion until concessions are granted. It hosts military assets while demanding strategic autonomy. It supplies drones to Ukraine while maintaining dialogue with Moscow. Turkey has learned how to monetize alliance politics. Veto power becomes bargaining currency. Security cooperation becomes leverage. Strategic ambiguity becomes policy. Where most alliance members internalize discipline, Ankara negotiates every obligation. It participates when it benefits. It resists when it doesn't. The alliance provides legitimacy, but Turkey controls the tempo. This is not rebellion. It is transactional realism. Historically, Turkey and Russia were imperial rivals. They fought across the Black Sea, the Caucasus, and the Balkans. Today, they cooperate on energy, tourism, regional deconfliction, and trade bypass routes. At the same time, they oppose each other in Ukraine, Libya, and the South Caucasus. They are neither allies nor enemies. They are competitors managing friction. Turkey imports Russian gas. Russian tourists sustain Turkish coastal economies. Trade volumes rise even as sanctions isolate Moscow elsewhere. Yet Ankara also restricts naval access when international conventions require it. It mediates grain exports. It arms Kyiv. This is compartmentalized rivalry. Ankara doesn't trust Moscow. It manages Moscow. This is how middle powers survive next to empires. They avoid binary alignment. They cooperate where useful. They resist where necessary. And they design systems where neither side gains total leverage. Turkey's strategy is not driven by ideology. It is driven by balance sheets. The country runs persistent current account deficits. It depends on imported energy. Its currency remains structurally vulnerable. That forces Ankara into pragmatic economics. Russian gas stabilizes domestic energy prices. Gulf capital supports construction and banking sectors. European markets absorb Turkish exports. China supplies industrial inputs. Turkey does not have the luxury of moral alignment. It requires multiple economic lifelines. Ankara positions itself as an energy transit hub, linking Caspian producers, Middle Eastern exporters, and European consumers. Pipelines become political instruments. Ports become negotiation platforms. Trade corridors become diplomatic assets. Turkey is building redundancy into its economic survival. No single partner is allowed to dominate. While global attention remains fixed on Europe, Turkey is steadily expanding influence farther south. In Libya, Turkish intervention reshaped the balance of power and secured maritime claims. In Somalia, Ankara operates its largest overseas military base. Across the Sahel and Red Sea corridors, Turkey exports drones, trains security forces, builds infrastructure, and deploys religious diplomacy. What Turkey offers differs from China or Europe. Fast deployment, fewer political conditions, cultural familiarity, security bundled with development. Turkish firms construct airports, hospitals, and ports. Military advisors train local forces. NGOs build schools and mosques. It is a vertically integrated influence model. Africa becomes Turkey's growth frontier, not out of altruism, out of strategic necessity. These partnerships buy shipping access, diplomatic support, and future markets. This is how a middle power scales globally, not through conquest, through contracts. Turkey's approach works because the global system is fragmenting. Great powers are overstretched. Alliances are weaker. Supply chains matter more than ideology. Geography beats morality. Europe needs migration control. Russia needs economic outlets. Ukraine needs weapons. The Middle East needs mediation. Africa needs infrastructure. Everyone needs something from Ankara. Turkey offers access. It offers logistics. It offers negotiation space. It offers plausible deniability. Turkey doesn't sell values. It sells utility. That makes it indispensable. In a fractured world, usefulness becomes power. But this balancing act is fragile. Turkey's model depends on economic stability, on investor confidence, on domestic legitimacy, on avoiding major wars that force alignment. If inflation spikes, social pressure rises. If capital flees, the currency weakens. If diplomacy collapses, isolation returns. Middle powers fall fast when momentum reverses. They lack the buffers of empires. They cannot absorb prolonged shocks. Turkey walks a narrow ridge. One miscalculation can turn leverage into vulnerability. The 21st century will not belong only to superpowers. It will belong to states that know how to move between them. Turkey is showing the blueprint, not dominance, positioning, not conquest, connectivity, not ideology, geography. In a world defined by choke points, supply chains, and overlapping crises, power no longer comes only from size. It comes from placement. Turkey understood this early, and Ankara is playing accordingly.